Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here. Some of you may have heard about the new Deep Dungeon coming in patch 7.35, Pilgrim's Traverse. It's looking to bring a new approach to the mode and allow players of all skill levels and time availability to actually pop in and partake in some way. However, it has one major flaw. It requires clearing Palace of the Dead, floor 50, to unlock. All Deep Dungeons after Palace of the Dead have the same requirement, and it's always baffled me. It's not that floor 50 is like super hard to achieve, but given how old the content is, the interest in it's super low, so players looking to match up and play with others will wait hours to get any parties at all. You may have had someone tell you, well, just solo to floor 50, it's really easy. But I checked for myself, and it's not as easy as people claim it is if you're starting from absolute scratch. Some of the early floors can be incredibly threatening, and if you don't understand the systems or pick a job that just happens to have a harder time in the early floors, it can actually be a pretty annoying thing to have to do, enough to put you off doing deep dungeons as they come out as new content. So this video is intended to explain the basics of Palace of the Dead and help you get to your floor 50 clear solo. That way you don't have to worry about playing with others. I'll explain each floor set, ways to manage navigating the dungeon, and how to best prepare. Within a few hours, you should have your clear done. Before we get started, the sponsor of this video is Magic Spoon. They make high-protein cereal, snack bars, and granola, and we've been working with them for quite some time. It all tastes great, and honestly, it helps me when my snackometer is going off. And yeah, I get a little snacky. I've been eating their products for years now, and I get excited every time a new box pops up. This latest one came packed with some delicious treat bars and some scrumptious granola. I'm always glad to have a high-protein option around, whether it be right after I get back from the gym, or honestly, sometimes I just want to avoid traditional snacks. If you'd like to try Magic Spoon while also supporting the channel, then click the link below to get some today. Build your own custom box of products with tons of available flavors to match your daily needs. Best of all, use my link and discount code Mr. Happy to get $5 off of your box. You can also buy it at your local grocery store, even on Amazon if you prefer. And if you don't like it, Magic Spoon has a 100% happiness guarantee. Let them know and they'll refund you, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Mr. Happy to get $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Mr. Happy to save $5 on your order. It even works in Canada and the UK. Thanks again to Magic Spoon for sponsoring, and now back to the video. So first of all, what is a deep dungeon? It's basically a mini roguelite dungeon. You start from the first floor and fight through randomly generated rooms, each with enemies to kill and traps to avoid. Kill enough enemies and you can escape to the next floor through the Carnive Passage. Every 10 floors is a boss, and when you kill the boss, you can exit that section of the dungeon. You can then enter the next set of 10 floors, repeat ad nauseum until it's done. Palace of the Dead was the first deep dungeon, and it could be entered as early as level 17. After completing the Copperbell Mines and its respective quest in the MSQ, head to New Gridania and grab the quest The House That Death Built in the Adventurers Guild. This will take you to Quarry Mill, where the entrance to Palace of the Dead actually is. You can actually now enter on any class or job, right from level 1. Palace must be entered from Quarry Mill every time, and it actually features its own save function. A save holds your place inside the dungeon once you've completed a set of 10 floors, so you can return to it later and continue. You don't have to do the whole thing all at once. If you wish to delete a save for any reason, just use the Reset Progress button on the Palace menu. There are two different types of saves you can make. A matched party save will randomly pair you up with other players who are queuing for the same floor set, while a fixed party save will enter with your current party of up to 4 players. You can also enter entirely alone using the fixed party option, and this guide will largely focus on going it alone. But let me tell you, if you have even just one friend that you can do this with, you're going to have so much easier of a time. If you can do it with 4 people, that's great, but I'm going to be treating it as if you're doing this all on your own. Keep in mind that if you enter as a fixed party, you must have those exact same players all playing the exact same job for the entirety of that save file's use. If you need to replace someone or want to change jobs, you'll need a brand new save. Matched parties will require you to play the same job, but you'll be matched with random other players, so it's not going to be the same people every time. Since Palace doesn't have a busy queue nowadays, though, I won't be talking about that too much more. Now, your power inside is not determined by your armor or your weapons, but instead a unique stat called Ether Pool Arm and Armor. It's an arbitrary stat that increases inside when you open specific chests. You are also given Pommanders, which grant various boons and support. These are also found inside a color of chest, and you can hold up to 3 of each kind. Now, for Etherpool Arm and Armor, you're going to be looking for silver chests. For Pommanders, you're going to be looking for gold chests. But there are also bronze chests, which contain potions, phoenix downs, and sometimes a Gulmoran potsherd, which can be exchanged outside for sustaining potions. One potsherd is 20 potions that can be used exclusively within Palace of the Dead. We'll talk more on Gelmoran potsherds a little bit later. Now, to get to and defeat the floor 50 boss, you'll want to exercise some caution and be careful as you power up your ether pool, so let's begin discussing how best to proceed. First, job choice. I actually just pulled up a random alt and it actually only had Black Mage, so I went with that. Generally speaking, jobs with high amounts of sustain are really safe for a 1 to 50 climb. Tanks are durable, not to mention Warrior gets some serious self-healing early on. They also have an interrupt and a stun, both of which can be used to bypass a few dangerous or annoying attacks. Healers may kill slow, but they can just heal themselves and survive pretty much everything, and they do have repose if they want to sleep an enemy if they get swarmed. Melee kill really fast and have some extra heals like Second Wind and Bloodbath, as well as a stun, and don't forget Arm's Length will slow enemy attacks. Fizz range can kite monsters around and sometimes avoid damage altogether, but if they do get hit, they have Second Wind, an Interrupt, and Arm's Length. Now when it comes to the casters, it's a little different. Pictomancer does insanely well in here at pretty much all of the levels, and the other two casters will only lightly struggle on some floors. They don't have as much sustain, so without potions it can actually be a lot more frightening to play as a caster in here. While Black Mage actually rolled through 31 to 50 really easily, it was a little bit scary up to that point. If you want a really easy time, tanks or healers are probably the way to go, though Astro is the least recommended one of those, even early on. For floors 1 to 10, you really just need to learn the basics. First off, you'll actually be starting at level 1, and you'll rapidly level up inside of Palace itself. This level is completely irrespective of your actual class or job level, so even if your job was level 100 on the outside, you'll be starting from level 1 when you get to floor 1 when you step in. On the flip side, if the class is level 1 on the outside, you'll still be going up to level 60 without leveling on the outside, so you'll be a level 60 class by the end of all of this. I don't usually recommend doing that. You probably want to play a job in here. You do get some experience when completing a set of 10 floors, but Deep Dungeon's also a good way to kind of peek into some of the skills you'll be getting later on. Most enemies will pose little to no threat unless you are actually swarmed by multiple enemies on these early floors. On the later floors here, there will be some bees that, if not killed quickly enough, will use Final Sting and likely kill you. Ensure to fight them one at a time and focus them down fast. You can also, of course, stun them to stop this. Focus on pulling monsters one at a time and avoid walking through the middle of the room to the best of your ability. Every room other than the room you entered the floor on has one hidden trap, which can blow up in your face, summon several monsters, restrict your skills, or transform you into a frog. Hugging the walls of a room lessens the possibility of this greatly, but there are some that are really close to the walls. My biggest recommendation, don't pull a monster until you're standing still and you're sure you're not on a trap. Don't try to run through, grab an enemy, and run back without at least checking to make sure you didn't step on a trap somewhere in the process. And then, after you pull a monster, if you need to move, backtrack the way you came. Don't try to go someplace you haven't stepped yet. Because hallways and the starting room don't have any traps at all, try to do most of your fighting and kiting in those places. That being said, for the first 50 floors, I recommend fighting absolutely every monster you find, as you'll want to gain as many actual levels as possible. Even check any side room outside of where the Carnive Passage is. If you see there's a room you haven't explored, go there, fight any enemies there, on the way back. You want to gain levels as quick as possible. Now for Pommanders, I recommend trying to save up 3 of most of the Pommanders, saving at least 1 Strength and Steel for the boss itself in every set of floors. If you go to open a chest and you already have 3, then feel free to use a Pomander to free things up. You want a Lust Pomander for most bosses to speed things up if possible, and a spare Witching Pomander, which you should use if you ever get swarmed by a group of enemies, or find an enemy that you just notice is hitting you way harder than you thought. The Sight and Safety Pommanders can reveal or remove traps, though as long as you stick to the walls, you shouldn't need these much early on. If you're feeling a little insecure, though, definitely feel okay to pop them. Now for chests, open every gold chest you can for more Pommanders. Silver chests you should also always open, as they can provide up to a +3 to either your Ether Pool arm or armor. They can also provide 0 if your Ether Pool armor is actually too high for the floor set you're on. Not going to be that much of an issue for 1 to 50, but keep in mind it can happen. They can also explode in your face, so don't open silver chests unless you're near full health. Bronze chests at this point are kind of a toss-up. Bronze chests can be mimics up to floor 30, and these can be incredibly threatening. They hit really hard, especially for the first few floors on any given set, and they can inflict pox on you, which will stop you from auto-healing and inflict a dot for 10 whole minutes. This can be removed with a Pomander of Purity, but it's just kind of an annoying thing to have to deal with in any capacity. Not to mention that from floor 24 onward, bronze chests can drop kill more in potsherds, which we mentioned earlier. While your ether pool is low, I recommend only opening up bronze chests after the first 3 floors of a set to reduce the risk of a mimic being too strong for you. The good news is that when you can kill mimics, they are worth a ton of experience points, so they can get you way ahead on levels inside. Because of silver chests, you'll want to be using Commanders of Affluence and Fortune a ton, as this will increase the number of chests you see by a lot. If your ether pool is ever uncapped, meaning that the text for them is white, use them without punity. Fortunes are best used at the start of a set of floors, unless of course you find a gold chest and it's got a spare in it and you're already at 3. But Affluence will increase the number of chests for the following floor. Alteration Commanders are also good to use, but they can spawn Mandragoras or Mimics on the next floor, so you usually want to wait till you're again past those first few floors. This usually means a lot of chests and experience, so just make sure you're using these as often as possible, as long as you have ether pool that is uncapped. Just don't use Alteration or Affluence on any 9th floor, because the 10th floor is going to be a boss, so they'll be wasted. For floors 1 to 10, the boss on the 10th is likely the biggest threat other than those bees I mentioned earlier. Really, you just need to dodge every AoE, but the boss itself does actually hit decently hard, especially the first time you actually do floors 1 to 10. He's going to have an extra whip thwack, I think it's called, on top of his regular attacks, and you'll really just be using the AoEs as an opportunity to heal. Be sure to use any potions you picked up from the bronze chest here as frequently as possible. Ensure you have a strength and steel commander up, and if you did get a commander of lust, use it before pulling the boss and use its fire attack to stack a vulnerability debuff up to 5. Problem with using a lust commander is in order to go back to using any of your normal skills or your potions, you have to untransform, and that can be a bit annoying. You actually need to manually remove the debuff, as there isn't a button to untransform naturally. Right-clicking the buff on your buff bar or using this macro on something that doesn't transform when you actually turn into the lust commander, don't put it on your first hotbar, will allow you to instantly untransform. Other than that, just kill the boss. Before advancing to floors 11 to 20, I actually recommend running 1 to 10 an extra time. Any extra silver chest you get will raise your ether pool, and it will be super important. You'll need to exit the sort of lobby area to do this to go back out to Quarry Mill and make a new save. Floors 11 to 20 really aren't any worse. If anything, they're a little easier. The only major monsters of note this time are these slimes, which explode if not killed fast enough. Focus them down, if for any reason you pull more than one slime at a time, use a Witching Commander. You'll begin picking up high potions now too, so be sure to replace them on your hotbar and otherwise trek forward. Keep an eye on whatever potions are dropping at any given point and update whatever potions are on your hotbar accordingly. The floor 20 boss is a bit more threatening than the floor 10 boss, but you might have enough ether pool at that extra run to make it seem easier. You want to make sure to kill any bees that spawn during this, specifically when you get the marker on you and the boss just goes to one side of the room and starts firing lasers. But otherwise, it's just moving out of all the AoEs and killing the bees. Same thing, use strength, steel, and lust, spam potions off cooldown. Once you lose about 30 to 40% of your health, and you'll probably be fine. Now here is where things get a bit rough. I would argue floors 21 to 30 are the hardest floors across the first 50 floors. The initial power spike of 21 to 23 can make some enemies super deadly, especially mimics, and the floor 30 boss can do much higher damage than the prior ones if your ether pool is low. It's just not unlikely that you could actually die on this floor set. I highly recommend running 1 to 20 on a separate save until you're close to 25 arm and armor. Unfortunately, silver chests will start rewarding 0 upgrades on the earlier floors since your ether pool will be capped. In these cases, save Affluence and Fortune Commanders unless capped until floors where the number is uncapped. Once your ether pool is close to 25, head on up to floors 21 to 30. Floors 21 to 23, I recommend exercising extreme caution. Monsters are hitting much harder at lower ether pool, and more than one at a time can be much more threatening. I haven't really mentioned it up to this point, but some monsters actually wander between the rooms, so I always recommend looking out into the other rooms, looking at any other rooms that may actually go into your room, to see if any monster is walking towards you before actually pulling and prioritizing these roaming monsters. On the earlier floors, you probably noticed it with goblins and a few other things, and it probably wasn't that big a deal, but here it can actually start to matter more. An enemy in particular to be careful of in the first few floors is the Wivray, which if you are at low ether pool will actually hit very, very hard. I also don't recommend opening bronze chests at all until floor 24 plus, where the bronze chests become infinitely more valuable, as the mimics can kill most players in a few attacks even with capped ether pool, unless you use a commander of steel, and if you don't have a commander of strength up on some jobs, they may even be able to inflict pox on you without you really having an opportunity to stop it, unless you have a stun. I guess I did do this on Black Mage, so I couldn't really do much about it. Remember, on floor 24 plus, bronze chests will start giving Gelmoran potsherds on occasion, which can be exchanged for 20 sustaining potions outside. Getting even a single Gelmoran potsherd is likely enough to carry you to floor 50 on its own, though you can be fine without one. Just be sure to open bronze chests from 24 onward. Once you get over the initial hump, the remainder of 24 to 29 isn't really that bad. You'll really want to be spamming Affluence, Alteration, and Fortune on these floors to get as many silvers as possible. If you can get close to 30-30 for your ether pool, that's actually good enough to clear all 50 floors reliably. One thing I recommend doing is grinding out any floor that you use a Fortune Pomander on for a few extra minutes. Run around after clearing everything and force some respawns and then kill those. You'll get further ahead on actual levels and get more chances at silver chests. There are also now Rage Pomanders in the gold chests. These transform you into a Manticore, which can one-shot enemies other than bosses. This Pomander won't work if the floor has knockback disabled, so bear that in mind, but feel free to use these in conjunction with Fortune Pomanders if the floor has a ton of enemies to farm for more potential chests to get some quick levels. If you're around level 51 or 52, the floor 30 boss is going to roll over real quick. The floor 30 boss just has a couple of basic attacks, but he does a lot of bonus hits to chip away at your health in between his auto attacks, which is why he can be really threatening. Move around the outside of the arena, baiting ice and fireball AoEs on the ground. Whenever the boss goes to the middle of the room to cast fear itself, stand directly under him to avoid the AoE fear. Ensure you have a steal for this and spam potions and healing whenever you lose a bit of health, and you should be good. And now that you've done that, floors 31 to 50 are all pretty super straightforward. You don't really need to do the dual save thing anymore if you don't want to. You don't need to go back and farm floors. You can if you want, it'll help, but you really don't need to. There aren't any major threats, and if your ether pool is over 30-30, you'll be more than strong enough to clear through the rest. There are a couple of changes to note though. If you can, try to get to level 60 before the floor 40 boss is my first piece of advice. Then we have the mimics themselves. On floors 31 to 40, bronze chests will no longer be mimics. Instead, silver chests can be mimics, so be prepared for a mimic instead of an ether pool upgrade, which can just be sad. On floors 41 to 50, the mimic will shift to gold chests, so given how often you open them, you're probably going to encounter more mimics than usual. Stuns stop working on the gold mimics as well, so anyone without an interrupt won't be able to stop the pox outside of just killing the mimic fast enough, which, to be fair, a lot of jobs should be able to do. For the floor 40 boss, it's mostly just going to be dropping puddles and firing AoEs at you, very low threat of death because you're not going to be getting auto-attacked a lot. When the boots spawn, you're going to want to kill them off as fast as possible while avoiding the AoEs. If you take too long to kill the boots, the boss will use Scream and lock players down, giving the boots time to cast Tornado and insta-kill them. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure they die. There's also a room-wide AoE with Shadow Flare, but only jobs that are likely to see that are tanks and healers, and they really aren't at risk of dying as long as they kill the boots. And then the floor 50 boss is also not too bad. Her main mechanic is In Health, which does a point-blank AoE or a donut AoE. You'll want to avoid this at all costs, as every AoE that hits any player will permanently spawn a rune that greatly empowers her Black Honeymoon room-wide AoE. She will also use Cold Feet, a gaze AoE that charms the player, making it impossible for them to actually dodge In Health or any other attack. Look away during Cold Feet and avoid In Health, and you should have no problem. Yeah, she can disease you with one of her attacks, and she is going to use a Dark Harvest to leap at you and do some bonus damage, but she's not really all that threatening. As long as you do the In Health and Cold Feet thing correctly, then there should be no problems. And bam, you're done with floor 50. While you could continue on, and I have videos from years and years and years ago to help you with that, this is all you need to unlock all the other deep dungeons. There's Heaven on High and Stormblood, there's Eureka Orthos and Endwalker, and then in patch 7.35 will be Pilgrim's Traverse, almost forgot what it was called, that you can also do as well. It's a really fun piece of content with a really dedicated community, especially when it comes to solo players. If you enjoyed this little solo venture to get floor 50 done, continue or consider doing some research so you can continue the run, go up to 51 to 100, and maybe even all the way up to 200. There are rare titles, and again, there's a lot of people that like to support others with tons of resources and communities that can help get you these personal challenge runs done. So, with that, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it helped you get your floor 50 clear before Pilgrim's Traverse actually came out. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.